שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם בנועם אדוני, ובקר בהיכלו. לחזות בנועם בנועם אדוני, ובקר בהיכלו.
Opening the heart. At the year's turn, in the days between, we step away from what we know into the spaces we cannot yet name. Slowly, the edges begin to yield. The hard places soften. The gates to forgiveness opens. Good Yontif. I'm Rabbi Benjamin Zober, and together with Rabbi Sarah Zober alongside me, we would like to welcome all of you to Temple Sinai's High Holiday Services. If you are joining us for the first time, or are a regular service goer, or perhaps you are a friend who we have not seen in quite some time, welcome. Welcome to a space that is both familiar and unfamiliar. A few bits of housekeeping before we begin. Our services this season are using the machzor Mishkan HaNefesh, which is the newest Reform machzor. If you are unfamiliar with this prayer book, a brief introduction. It contains traditional texts with Hebrew, a transliteration, and a translation on most pages. The pages in gray boxes are alternative readings and meditations, some things to take your mind off or bring you in other directions should you choose. And the blue boxes are study texts, opportunities to dig deeper, to learn more, to explore the meaning and the significance of the prayers. We hope that you will follow along, but if you find your mind wandering, feel free to flip through the pages. There are far more things to study and read than we could ever hope to cover. And we hope that if you find a prayer or a meditation or a reading that speaks to you, then that will give you some extra meaning in these days of awe. If you happen to need a virtual copy of the machzor, you can visit sinaireno.org, which also will get you all sorts of information that you need throughout the High Holiday Service season. But if you scroll down, there is a section entitled Get the Machzor, and there you can get the machzor. For those of you who are in the building with us tonight, welcome. Thank you for fulfilling all of the honors that you will be doing. Please take this moment to silence your cell phones. There are many different ways to talk to God, but your cell phone is not one of them this evening. We also ask that you keep your mask on and covering your nose and mouth while you are in the building at all times. If you do have a reading, please come up to the reader's podium, take off your mask for the time and duration of your reading, and once you are done, please put the mask back on your face for everyone's safety. We do have young children here who are not yet old enough to be vaccinated, and we would like to keep them and everyone in our community as safe as possible. If you absolutely need to take a mask break, please feel free to go outside with our somewhat fresher air these days and do that there. In case of an emergency, we have 3 points of exit here in the social hall. The double doors to your right, the exit to the small social hall behind you, and the emergency exit to your left. In the case that the sanctuary loses cabin pressure, there will be no masks dropping from the ceiling because you are already wearing them. The exits on the sides are emergency only, so we will press the alarm if we see you running through them. For everyone here and at home, at a number of times during the service, we will be inviting you to rise. If you are more comfortable remaining seated, unsure of your footing, or can only stand for a short while, please do what is best and safest for you. We turn at this season to consider extraordinary issues, and being in spaces that are both comforting and unsettling can help us shed our self-consciousness. And it helps us begin an honest accounting of who we are, what we have done, and where we hope to be. We begin tonight with a sense of both sorrow and joy. Sorrow as we begin to confront our regrets, and joy at the opportunity to start again. It is the new year. May it be a good one. We turn to page 8 in the machzor.
Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim la'aretz al yitin lamot raglecha al yanu Yomam HaShemesh lo yakecha ve'yareach halayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmat tzedcha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam.
At this time, we would like to invite Maria Langer up for a reading on page 10. We now would like to invite Mara Langer up to light our Yom Tov lights. Page 11 in the machzor.
Amen. It's now our pleasure to invite up Sandra Goodman to offer a reading on page 12.
To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There is the season of the soul, a time to rejoice, a time to reflect, a time to return, a time to gather round the table with loved ones and friends, a time for song and silence, for prayer and confession to open the heart, a time to retreat to our sanctuaries within, a time to renew the life and spirit of our community. This is the season of attentiveness, a time to notice what has unfolded and what has not, a time to regret, a time to forgive, a time to remember cherished dreams and high ideals erased by reality. This is the season of hope, like mist rising at sunset, like dew descending at dawn. Our hopes beautify and nourish everything they touch. Our hopes make us partners in creation, pursuers of peace, people who aspire to a world of justice. This is the season of awe. When our eyes behold it, may we feel blessed. When we turn toward each other, let us feel strength. When we seek the holy, may we find purpose. May we find courage. May we find love.
It's now our pleasure to invite up Toby Iser so that we can hear the first shofar of Tishrei. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, b'kesel yom chagenu, ki chok liYisrael hu, mishpat leElohei Yaakov.
At the new moon, at the full moon, for our feast day, sound the shofar. For that is the law of Israel, the way of the God of Jacob.
Tekiah, Tekiah, Tekiah. Page 17.
Here I am, so poor in deeds I tremble in fear, overwhelmed and apprehensive before you, to whom Israel sings praise. Although unworthy, I rise to pray and seek favor for your people Israel, for they have entrusted me with this task. Therefore, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, Adonai, Adonai, merciful, gracious God, who inspires awe, I pray to you for success on my path. I pray for myself and my community. Do not hold them responsible for my wrongs and offenses. May my deeds cause them no shame, and may their deeds cause me no shame.
We turn to page 19 as we announce the new year. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu yehi ratzon shenizke levirchotecha bishnat 5,782.
Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5,782. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you in the new year that stretches before us. We are forever grateful for the gift of life.
We turn to the Baruch Hu on page 20 as we all rise. We turn together to page 22 and read in the English.
Blessed are you, Adonai. Your great name fills the universe with majestic might. Your word creates twilight and dusk, as your wisdom opens the gates of night. Your discernment separates the changing seasons and causes the passage of time. The stars arrayed across the sky reveal your design. You roll out the cycle of darkness and light, shaping day and night. You sweep away day and carry the world into nightfall, setting day apart from nighttime. You are God of all we can perceive and all that is beyond our perception. Living eternal God, be our sovereign to the end of time. Baruch atah Adonai, Ma'ariv Aravim.
Page 25. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who has sanctified us by commandments and commanded us regarding the reading of the Shema, to declare God's reign with a whole heart, to declare God one with a good and willing heart, and to worship God with a good and willing spirit. Page 24 at the bottom. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. The Shema can be found on page 26. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated.
We continue together with the V'ahavta, page 28. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavacha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam nevanecha v'dibartam b'shivtecha b'beitecha u'leftecha b'derech u'shalchecha u'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha וכתבתן על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We read responsively on page 33. To break the bonds of anger, to be generous of heart,
to break the bonds of shame, to live with self-respect,
to break the bonds of envy, to serve one another in joy,
to break the bonds of boredom, to be attentive to all God's gifts,
to break the bonds of fear, to live with courage and strength,
to untie the knots of betrayal, to love with fullness of being,
to break the bonds of loneliness, to receive a hand of hope,
to break the bonds of self-centeredness, to extend a hand of help.
Released from the darkness, our people found their freedom at the sea.
And we pray for liberation at the dawning of this year. Mi Chamocha can be found in the middle of page 34. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף מלכותך, ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה, זלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר יפד אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Page 36. Bless our sleep with peace, Adonai, and awaken us to life when we rise. With power sublime, spread over us your shelter of shalom, and through your wisdom restore us, make us whole. Let your name proclaim your presence in our lives, be our shield. Make us stronger than the enemies we face, illness and war, famine and sorrow, and stronger than the enemies in our hearts, wickedness and sin. Carry us to safety as on wings, for you are the monarch of grace, the sovereign of compassion. You are the one who cares for us and sets us free. Watch over us, we who go forth to life. Watch over us, that we may come home in peace, now until the end of time. Together, Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Turn to page 42, and if you are able, we invite you to please rise for the Amidah.
Adonai, sifatai tifach, u'fiat tehillatah. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor, HaNorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, Ve'vi Geulah Livnei Bneihem, L'ma'an Shemo ve'ahava, Zofreinu l'chayim, Melech HaBeit HaChayim, Avotenu Be'sefer HaChayim, L'ma'ancha Elohim Hayim, Melech Ozer Moshiach Hayim, Baruch atah Adonai, Magid Abraham, Ezrat Sarah, Atah Dibur Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atara Ve'Hoshia, Morid Atah, Mechacher Chayim B'Chesed, Mechayeh HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Tolech Noflim B'Rofei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato L'Shelei Achar.
Yom Elah, Melech Levi Tumachayei, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Nichamocha El Barachamim, Zocher Yitzurav Lechaim Berachamim, Zocher Yitzurav Lechaim, Lechaim Berachamim, Shene'emanatan HaChayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukroshim b'kol yom yira'u Hasela.
At the bottom of the page, and so in your holiness, give all creation the gift of awe. Turn our fear to reverence. Let us be witnesses of wonder, perceiving all nature as a prayer come alive. We bow to the sovereignty of your strength, the primacy of your power. We yearn for connection with all that lives, doing your will with wholeness of heart. Awe-inspiring is your creation, all-encompassing your transcendent name. And so, in your holiness, give your people the gift of honor. Bless with praise those who praise you. Bless with hope those who seek you. Give your believers a basis for faith, true happiness for the land of Israel, true joy in Jerusalem. May the sparks of David, your servant, soon grow bright enough for us to see a beam of light in the darkness, promise of perfection. So, in your holiness, give the righteous the gift of a vision bright with joy. A world where evil has no voice, and the rule of malevolence fades like wisps of smoke. Good people everywhere will celebrate the stunning sight of arrogance gone from the earth.
Page 2, we join together in the Chatima. Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh.
You may be seated if you choose.
Page 54.
In your love, eternal our God, you have given us this day of remembrance, a day for the shofar's joyful sound, a day of sacred assembly, a day to be mindful of our people's going out from Egypt. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life, and for peace on this day of remembrance.
Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova.
Eternal our God, remember us.
Ufokdenu bo livracha.
Be mindful of us and redeem us
V'hoshienu bo l'chaim.
for a life of goodness and blessing. Favor us with words of deliverance and mercy. Show us the depth of your care. God, we await your redemption, for you reign with grace and compassion. We turn to page 58.
God who is ours and God of our fathers and mothers, lead us to holiness through your mitzvot, and may each of us find a portion of Torah that is ours. You bestow such goodness. Teach us to be satisfied and to know the joy of your salvation. Help us to serve you truly with purity of heart, for you are a faithful God whose truth stands forever. Baruch atah Adonai, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, v'yom hazikaron. We turn to page 66 for Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol ha'shalom v'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובחושך בשלומך. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, ברכה ושלום ניזכר וניכתב לפניך. אנחנו בכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
We turn to page 72 and invite up Doug Goodman for a reading.
May the Eternal One who blesses all life bless and strengthen all of us who struggle against illness. May we whose lives are touched by illness be blessed with faith, courage, love, and caring. May we experience support and sustenance of family, friends, companions, and community. May we be granted restful nights and days of comfort. We pray for refuah shelama, precious moments of healing and a sense of wholeness in body and soul. May those who care for the sick with their hands, their voices, and their hearts be blessed with courage and stamina. May those who pursue healing through medical skill and knowledge be blessed with insight, patience, and compassion. May all of us, the sick and the well together, find courage and hope. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you.
We all rise as we turn to page 74 to open the ark for the Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, strong was the faith of generations before us. In exile they proclaimed enduring hope. In the shadow of persecution, they affirmed a transcendent love and compassion. Ours is a different age, less confident and certain, more tentative in its trust. There are many who say to the works of their hands, "You are our God." But when our worship centers on our own creations, we feel less gratitude, more doubt and despair. This is the paradox of our spiritual lives. We grow smaller in self-exaltation, nobler when we reach for you. On this night of return, let us find the humility to come close to you and open ourselves to your presence, for you are absent only when we fail to make room for you in our hearts, distant only when we turn away from you. Now, as others have done before us, let us overcome doubt and speak these words of affirmation. We call you Avinu, loving parent, forgive our wrongs and failings, accept us in our human frailty. We call you Malkeinu, as sovereign of our souls, help us rise from our brokenness to build a world of shalom. To this vision, we offer ourselves anew.
Avinu Malkeinu, Inmanu Melech Ela Ata.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, you alone are our sovereign.
Avinu Malkeinu, L'ma'ancha Rachem Aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, for your sake, show us mercy.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu L'ma'an Shmecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shlach Refuah Shlema L'cholei Amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, bring healing and wholeness to the ill among us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kra Roa Izar Dinenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, allay the harshness of the decree against us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotubenu B'Sefer Gitula Yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu, describe us in the book of redemption and renewal.
Avinu Malkeinu, Zofrinu B'Zichron Tov Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, remember our good deeds, call it to mind.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh L'ma'ancha B'Moshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake and save us.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, V'al Olaleinu V'Tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Deber Mechera V'Ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tsar U'Mastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotubenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us the year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu V'Anenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Aseh Imanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Moshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu V'Anenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Aseh Imanu, Tzedakah V'Chesed. Aseh Imanu, Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Moshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu V'Anenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. You may be seated. One of my favorite things to do is to teach children how to pray. And one of my favorite prayers to teach is the Aleinu, because it is what I have begun to tell our children, what we call a vision prayer. Originally written to be said once a year, At the beginning of the shofar service on Rosh HaShanah, the Aleinu caught on and was added very early on as the central prayer to close out every single service. Now, the Aleinu begins, as all prayers begin, with a call to praise God as the ruler of the earth and the only being worthy of our service. But it quickly morphs into that vision prayer, with a section that, if we are in an Orthodox or conservative synagogue, we mumble through, or in a Reformed synagogue, we often completely skip over. It's that section that I want to bring our attention to today. This part of the Aleinu begins, Al ken nikaveh. Therefore, we put our hope in you, God, that we will see the glory of your might, that we will see idols banished from the earth, that false gods will be eradicated, that the world will be repaired into your empire, that everything that lives will call on your name, and all the wicked turn to you. Today, with fires raging to the north and the south of us, with our rising COVID cases, with the political divisiveness, natural disasters, and the curtailing of human rights at home and across the globe, I believe that we need what the Aleinu teaches us now more than we ever have. For if we are being honest, we should know by now that the world is not ever going back to the way it was when last we were all in this social hall during the high holidays of 5780. And there is much work that we still need to do to shape this new world. The Aleinu gives us a model for the work that we need to do today as we find ourselves navigating this unsettling transition period. So what is that work that the Aleinu trains us to do? First, it is the work of submission to grief. On Rosh HaShanah, when the Aleinu Hagadol, that original Aleinu, is chanted, we are told to physically fall to our knees, to first place our hands on the floor and then touch our forehead to it. This dramatic moment of physical submission tracks with the words we now say every day, 3 times a day, Va'anachnu kor'im umishtachavim umodim. We bow and we prostrate and we give thanks. Whereas on all other days, we bow slightly with our knees and our head. On Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur, we're told to give in completely and fall to our faces. This practice is visceral, and it is meant to make us feel our powerlessness in the face of the grief of the world. In reality, this is the aim of all prayer that we do. The Hebrew word for prayer, tefillah, is both etymologically related to and sounds a bit like the word to fall. The Aleinu reminds us that in order to do this work, we must be vulnerable and humbled. We must change something about the way we move, even changing something as simple as the way we move our bodies in space in order to understand and internalize that grief. We must realize that our work in repairing the world begins only when we fall to our knees and acknowledge, in the words of our most righteous ancestor Abraham, that we are but dust and ashes. Rather than standing here upright and proud in our fancy clothes and on our own merits, we kneel to the floor in the ashes and examine the ways that we've failed. Because the reality of the world that we live in is that it is full of grief. And many of us are not allowing ourselves to feel it. When coronavirus deaths hit 100,000 in the United States, the New York Times ran a giant front page story that I think many of us have that image in our head. US deaths near 100,000, an incalculable loss. It was a text-only page, the first since the New York Times had the ability to run pictures. And under that headline were only 1,000 of the 100,000 obituaries of the people who died in those early days. The image of those giant blocks of text and the vastness of that fraction of cases shocked many of us. At this point, we've lost 650,000 Americans to the coronavirus, and we've heard nary a peep. Many of us are instead still trying hard to go through the motions of normal times, trying to ignore this tragedy entirely until it touches us directly. Because it's easier that way. Instead of coming together collectively and grieving together the millions of lost lives from the coronavirus, we spend our time as internet warriors, squabbling over masks, posting on Facebook about vaccine mandates and reopening plans. Instead of grieving this damaged planet, here in Reno, so acutely damaged, we are burying our heads in the sand while our government throws more money at the fossil fuel industry. Instead of grieving our collective failure to give the generations who are coming after us a world in which their safety and their dignity are secure, we are allowing their futures to be sold to the highest bidder or the most determined extremist. I understand why we do this. We do it because acknowledging grief is hard and painful. It means looking into the face of another human being and seeing what has gone wrong in their life. It means asking ourselves how we have contributed to one another's pain. It means confronting death and our own waning mortality. And hardest of all, it means taking responsibility for the ways in which we unconsciously walk through the world. A Hopi Indian chief, White Eagle, commented on the current situation. This moment that humanity is experiencing, he says, can be seen as a door or a hole. The decision to fall into the hole or walk through the door is up to you. If you consume the news 24 hours a day, he says, with negative energy, constantly nervous with pessimism, you will fall into the hole. But if you take this opportunity to look at yourself, to rethink life and death, to take care of yourself and others, then and only then will you walk through the portal. Grief is the thing that allows us to do what Chief White Eagle reminds us to do, to look at ourselves, to rethink life and death and our relationship to it, and to recommit ourselves to taking care of both ourselves and others. Grief reminds us of what matters and gets our heart into the work of repairing the world. Rosh Hashanah and the Aseret Yemei HaTeshuvah, these 10 days of repentance, are the time in our calendar to feel the grief that comes from living in this deeply broken world. That is why we will chant the Unatana Tokef, why we say Yizkor and remember our dead, why we read through the long martyrology and urge ourselves constantly to make amends. We don't know when our time will be up. And we each are only given precious few years to do what we can do. And if we cannot acknowledge and grieve that the world is broken, if we are mired instead in blame and denial, we have no hope for creating the world anew. But of course, grief is only the beginning of the process that the Aleinu outlines for us. When I teach our kids about the Aleinu, I usually ask them to take a moment and envision the world as it should be, not as it is. I ask them, how would this world look if we were able to repair everything that is wrong and broken about it? Now, our kids are wonderful and hands shoot into the air because as much as we try to shelter our little ones from the world, they see it all too clearly. And on Sunday morning, as the sun is coming through our sanctuary windows, they say things like, if the world were the way it should be, the fires would go away. People would protect each other. Everyone would have a home. No one would be hungry. We would love each other instead of fighting. We would take care of the earth. Some of us in our more cynical adulthood have lost the ability to do what our children do so instinctually and easily, to envision something better. We get tired and we give in to defeatism and despair, or we refuse to even entertain any idea that is incomplete. But Mariana Kaba, a prison abolitionist, reminds us that we do not have to have all the answers within ourselves. She says, just because I, Mariam Kaba, can't imagine something doesn't mean it's not valuable, or that thing can't be undone or done. It really doesn't matter if I, as an individual, can't imagine a thing. It matters that there are people out there imagining that thing. She echoes our tradition in the book of Proverbs. Ve'ein hazon yipare'am, v'shomer Torah ashrehu. For lack of vision, Proverbs tells us, a people loses their way. But happy is the one who obeys the Torah. This Torah-inspired version of the world we want to live in is not naivete, nor is it pie-in-the-sky optimism. This vision is the essential blueprint that every builder needs in order to get a job done. The Aleinu, the Torah, is the architect that tells us what this world must look like. This world must be a world where false gods and idols are no more. Even the modern idols of wealth and success and the Instagram image that leads us to waste all of our time and money upgrading ourselves and our station rather than helping others. The Aleinu tells us that the world will become God's empire, a place where our tradition tells us each person shall sit under their own vine and their own fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. This is not a metaphor. In the ancient world, an orchard meant stability, housing, food, and a job. The kind of security that many modern workers still dream of. The Aleinu tells us that this perfect world will be a world where the wicked turn back to God. And our tradition tells us that the wicked are those who separate themselves from their community and refuse to care for the widow and the orphan and the stranger. It is impossible to build such a world without calling out the ideals and exalting the values that shape it. Just as an architect's sketches never look exactly like the finished product, things will change as we build that world. We do not need to know exactly how many screws and 2x4s we will need before starting this project. We do need to know and commit to the big pieces. And our study of Torah gives us those in order to shape our vision of the work that's to come. Because after the kids and I have dreamed and envisioned the world that we want, I then break down for them what the word Aleinu means. Al is the Hebrew word for upon something. And the new ending tells us it's upon us. We are the ones who have submitted ourselves to the grief of our broken world. We are the ones who have dreamed about the way that it should be. And now we are the ones who must internalize that it is upon us to do that work. The work of banishing idols, eradicating false gods, repairing the world, and turning the wicked back to good. And it is here where the fundamentalists, the cynics, the defeatists, and the status quo lovers fail. They see the discrepancy between the world that is and the world that we have dreamed, and they throw up their hands. It's too much, they say. And we are not presidents of countries, nor are we celebrities who can rally people to our project. But the Mishnah reminds us, you are not obligated to complete the work, nor are you free to desist from it. And none of us is alone. None of us is singular, just one person. If we are not one of the wicked, we have our many communities, both religious and secular, to fight alongside us and help us do this work. For the world is constantly changing, as our God is constantly changing. Ahya asher ahya, God says, when Moses asks for God's name. I will be what I will be. God's statement is one of constant becoming, best understood in the ways in which we see ourselves as co-authors with God in the work of creation. And in 2014, Angela Davis gave a talk at Southern Illinois University in which she said, when you make change, you have got to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world. And you have to do it all the time. Every time we step outside our door, the world has been changed a little by our deeds and the deeds of others. Aleinu, it is upon us to identify those changes and see whether they are leading us in the direction of our ideal world or whether they are moving us further away from it. Or, in the words of Sikh human rights activist Valerie Kaur, you must continually wonder about the world and ask, what if this is the darkness, not of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? Yes, this world is full of pain. There has been grief. People are suffering right now. The earth itself is suffering right now. And our liturgy during these 10 days should move us to feel that grief intensely, overwhelmingly. There is a reason that our liturgy has us list our sins as things we have done. It's not because each of us has committed adultery. It is because each of us knows someone that we can influence to be better about the thing, to do better, to think more compassionately and more kindly. Each of us has a task that we are uniquely suited for that can help nudge this world closer to its ideals. We need to spend a bit of time feeling the grief of not having done enough yet. And then we need to let it push us to do the work that we can do, fully invested in that image of a better world that we hold in our hearts. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs tells us, Judaism is humanity's faith in the future tense. The Jewish voice is the voice of an inextinguishable hope, not the naive belief that things will get better, but an active hope that requires us to work together to make things better. We are a people who has lived through much. We know that plagues are not the end. We know that financial ruin is not the end, that being thrown out of our country is not the end, that not even the fires of the Holocaust are the end. We have always been part of the remnant who survived. And we survived to keep the Torah's vision of a better world flourishing wherever we went. Aleinu, it's upon us to birth a new world into being. The Aleinu ends with a section that we're all familiar with. After the grief, after the vision, after the work has been done, Bayom Hahu, Yihyeh Adonai Echad U'Shmo Echad. The Aleinu tells us, on that day, God will be one, and God's name will be one. Shana Tova to all of you. May this be a year full of good deeds.
It is now our pleasure to invite up Jen Wolf for a reading on page 81.
No one ever told me the coming of the Messiah could be an inward thing. No one ever told me a change of heart might be as quiet as new fallen snow. No one ever told me that redemption was as simple as springtime and as wonderful as birds returning after a long winter. Rose rested grosbeaks singing in the swaying branches of a newly budded tree. No one ever told me that salvation might be like a fresh spring wind blowing away the dried, withered leaves of another year, carrying the scent of flowers, the promise of rotation. What I found for myself, I tried to tell you. Redemption and salvation are very near, and the taste of them is in this world that God created and laid before us.
We now turn to page 82 and rise for Aleinu.
Our יקרא בשמיים עמו, ושכינת עוזו, ונופל ברוחים. הוא אלוהינו אלוהינו, אל בית מלכנו אפס זולתו, כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, להשבות אל אלוהיך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים נברא, והארץ מתחת אלינו.
And so, Adonai our God, we look to you, hoping soon to behold the splendor of your power revealed, a world free of idolatry and false gods, a world growing more perfect through divine governance, a world in which all human beings make known your name, while those who do evil turn toward you. You may be seated. Our thoughts turn to loved ones whom death has taken from us in recent days, and those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. Zichrononam livracha. May their memories be a blessing in this new year and always. This time, we remember Rabbi Richard Hirsch, Joe Johns, Sherwin Sider, Arthur Ashkin, Jack Robinson, Betty Williams, Pamela Walker, Barb McBrady, Mary Jane Ludwig, Inga Kaplan, Elizabeth Ruth Rassler, James Cross, Peter A. Alsberg, PhD, Eileen Jenkins, Selma Four, Steve Strauss, Andrew Verratti, Donna Matlis, Charlie Perlman, Rabbi Michael Cook, Sharon Perlman, Mildred Millie Small, Alan Dabrow, William Leibovic, Jim Valentine, Eli Kahn, David Stucker. And we commemorate the yahrzeits of Salm Fox, Meyer Silvershare, Simon Davis, Rabbi Alfred Gottschalk, PhD, J.T. Cassell, Sidney J. Katz, Bonnie LaRose, Sophie Weiner, Alice J. Body, Saul Friedman, Julian A. Rutkovitz, Edda Shelley Cavalli, Melvin Feldman, Samuel Greenblatt, Harry Kahn, Sheldon Levens, Louis Reeb. We add to those names all that you have shared in your hearts with us as well. Kaddish Yatom can be found on page 90. If it is your custom, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra thirute v'yamlich malute. B'chayechon וביום האחרון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי בקודשה בריחו. לילה ולילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And together we say, amen. You may be seated. And it is my pleasure and honor to now invite up Michael Gorden for some announcements this evening.
HaShanah Tova. I stand together with you here again as the president of Temple Sinai, and albeit the situation is slightly better than last year's high holidays, but still not where all of us wanted or expected to be as summer approached. Yes, I'm here in person, but most of you are joining us in the virtual world as we all have too well become accustomed. My continued hopes are that all of you, no matter where you are, joining us or have and will continue to get vaccinated and stay healthy to your best abilities. So yes, even with the past year and a half of COVID crisis, your Temple Sinai board and committees still are making sure the building and programs continue on. As always, more important than all of us is our administrator, Mike Stombaugh, who is here running our streaming services. Thank you. Mike continues as our mastermind to make sure we stay afloat day to day, both in the office and for a majority of our technical needs. Next, of course, is our rabbis for their dedication to our Jewish community and to always going above and beyond for each of us every day. And to the many volunteers we have on our board and the committees, especially Marilyn Roberts and the Jewish Practice Committee, as their work goes often unappreciated day to day. My plan and my plea this new year is to gain some more volunteers as we are shorthanded in many ways, and I will get back to that soon. So many of you know through my monthly centennial articles that we have received some grant funding. The nonprofit security grant from the feds for $100,000, and more recently the organizational grant for $10,000 from Jewish Nevada. We are working hard to accomplish all of our security needs that we lined out in our federal grant. But with COVID barreling down on us just as we received it, this has not been an easy task. We applied for the Jewish Nevada grant to help us modernize our Sinai school classrooms, which we did with laptops and webcams in each room to go along with the TVs that are now installed. Not only does this give us the ability for our teachers to teach more, but will also allow us to be hybrid when needed and to broaden our horizons for adult education. Thank you to Jewish Nevada for becoming a big part of Northern Nevada recently. There will be more to come about Jewish Nevada, what Jewish Nevada means to us in the North, and ongoing programs of support. David Levine, again, thanks for our beautiful flowers, and do they not only look beautiful, but enlighten us with such sweet aromas. Last and definitely not least, I stand before you in our large social hall. And as I look around, I cannot thank Mitch Ziegler, enough for the generous donation of LED lighting. For those who are here, you can enjoy it right here, but the rest of you will not be able to see it until you get to come join us again. Not only is this a gift for now, it's a gift that will keep on giving, as we will see some significant savings in our annual budget as far as electricity is concerned. And yes, it's a much greener step from us towards our environment. Again, Mitch, if you are joining us today in this virtual world, Tada Rabah. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Temple Sinai needs you. Yes, we always need continued financial support, but I'm referring to the need for volunteers. Currently, the Temple Sinai board needs 2 members at large, a secretary, and a chief financial officer. We also need volunteers on our committees, as it is the same folks working all of the events year after year, and they are getting burnt out. Please, please, please. If you can spare some time, either on the board or to help with any of the wonderful committees, we need you. And yes, for all those who have helped in the past and want to come help us with the sukkah setup, it is going up this year. As I leave you with the following reminders over the next few days, I want to read you some inspiration written from an author I had an opportunity to hear from a few years back. And I quote, "I leave you with 5 things you absolutely must give up to stay positive. Stop trying to please everyone. Give up the fear of change. Life is a change management course. Living in the past is done. Overthinking and worrying. And 5, doubting yourself and putting yourself down." So for our upcoming events, we do have tomorrow, 10 a.m. morning service via live stream again. 4 p.m. we have our Rosh HaShanah service. It's usually 0 to 8 years old. It's via Zoom. Registration is required, so if you haven't had the chance, please do. And then tomorrow evening, please join us for Tashlich outdoor service in person and via live stream on the river at Wingfield Park. Masks and sacred social distancing required. And for more information on that, just visit us at sinaireno.org for the map and parking instructions. And then if you wish to join us, there will also be via Zoom 10 a.m. morning service on Wednesday, September 8th for Rosh HaShanah. We look forward to seeing you all back here on Friday night for our regular Shabbat Shuvah. The service will be at 7:30 with Tatzvah at 5:30. Again, those will be via live stream. And with that, once again, Shana Tova, and I invite up Kay.
Thank you, Michael. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jay Goldberg, Temple Sinai's second vice president and chair of the membership committee. I'd like to welcome everyone who's watching these services, whether you're a local member from here in the Reno area, a relative of a member from Chicago, someone who found us on YouTube from Boston, or maybe you're watching from another country somewhere in the world. I would normally start with something like, "It's great to see everyone here." Unfortunately, because of COVID, I'm looking out at about 20 people in a room that can hold around 200. So let me start with one word: wow. For me personally, in the last 15 months, my mother-in-law has gone from living independently to being in a nursing home and surviving COVID to now being on hospice. And my wife, Amy, a nurse, has had to manage her care from over 2,000 miles away. No stress in our house. Over 645,000 Americans have died from COVID. People have lost their jobs because businesses have closed, either temporarily or permanently. Teachers taught remotely, and parents have juggled working from home providing child care for young ones, and ensuring their school-age children were attending classes online and doing their homework. And many people were just trying to stay in their homes, unable to make rent or mortgage payments without a job or a steady source of income. Not to mention many seniors whose only contact with people was on their phone or their computer. Wow! But who was and is here for us? Temple Sinai. We stream Shabbat services almost every week, providing familiar faces, comforting prayers and music. And a number of months ago, we started having a virtual get-together after services, a Yisma Zoom, as we call it, where people can schmooze. Not the same as being together in the social hall or in the sanctuary, but it's better than not getting together at all. Sinai School became virtual to ensure that our students continued with their Jewish education and progressed toward their bar and bat mitzvot. Oh, and we were able to hold 9 B'nai Mitzvah services this past year, including one from an adult. Now granted, there were restrictions on the number of people who could attend in person, but no limit to the number of people who were able to share virtually. Not to mention the pride and joy we saw in these young men and women, as they read Torah as a Jewish adult for the first time. And the beaming smiles on the faces of their parents that we saw, or we knew were there under the masks. We've tried to reach out regularly to our seniors in our congregation to ensure they're okay, to see if they need anything, or to let them know that they're not alone. And thanks to Jewish Nevada, we were able to provide grants to needy congregants that have fallen on hard times during the pandemic. And of course, thanks to our members and those who have given tzedakah at Temple Sinai, we were here to provide the comfort and support our congregants needed and still need at a time when the world is certainly out of control. But we need your continued support. Your donations for the High Holy Days will support many programs, projects, community outreach, and all of the activities that our synagogue provides. We need your donations to ensure that at least we break even on our budget, which thankfully I can say we've been able to do for the last 3 years. Whether you're a member of Temple Sinai or just partaking in our High Holy Day services, we ask that you make a donation at www.sinaireno.org/donate. Now, many of you may be asking, how much should I donate? Well, for those of you who are fortunate enough to be in a really good financial position, please reach out to someone on the board, as we have a laundry list of things we could do with a large donation. But seriously, we're suggesting a donation of $150 from each person or family. For just 50 cents a day, you can help ensure that a synagogue in Northern Nevada can continue to provide programs to meet the needs of its members and the community, while maintaining our buildings, grounds, and infrastructure, and maybe even saving a few shekels for the future. If you can afford more than $180, we would greatly appreciate you giving. And even if you can't afford $180, please give whatever amount you're comfortable with, because every bit helps. I would appreciate if you would donate to the general fund so that the board can use this money for the projects that we feel will be the most impactful. So after services, or sometime in the next week, please think about how inspiring these have been and how much we need your support to ensure that these High Holy Day services and the support we provide to the Northern Nevada community will continue at Temple Sinai for generations to come. Again, please give generously at www.sinaireno.org/donate or send a check to our temple office with High Holy Days in memo. I wish everyone a happy, healthy, sweet, and prosperous new year. HaShanah Tova Tikati.
We turn to page 94 for our final song, Adon Olam. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra
Li'ein nasa v'chefso kol, Azai melech shemo nikra. V'acharei kiflot hakol, Levado yimloch nora. V'hu haya v'hu hove, V'hu yiyeh v'tifara. V'hu echad v'yein sheni, Laham shilo lahachbira. Beli reshit, beli tachlit, velo ha'oz v'ha'misra. Vehu eli v'chai goali, v'tzor chevli v'yetzara. Vehu nisi umanosli, menat kosi v'yom akra. Biado afkid ruchi, V'yeti shan ve'ahira, ve'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, shetechadesh aleinu shana tova u'mituka.
Our God and God of our ancestors, eternal God of all generations, may your presence in our lives this new year renew our spirits and renew our strength. May it be a good year. May it be a sweet year.
L'shana tova tekatevu v'techatemu.
May you be inscribed and sealed for a good year.
Shana tova.
Shana Tova, everyone.